Hello and welcome to Sex Ed Sundays with Dr. Sonya Maya. That's me. I post about sex education, relationships, and psychology every Sunday. So if you like that kind of content, please make sure to like and subscribe. I want to talk about squirting today. We're going to go over some facts and myths related to squirting so we can fully understand it isn't pure pee. That's a huge myth. We're going to get more into that later. It's rather a combination of urine, yes, uric acid, and creatinine. No, not creatine. Creatinine. I know it's a little harder to say, but it's different than creatine that you might drink as a form of nutritional supplement. So squirt is released by the Skene's gland. The Skene's gland, which is also referred to as the female prostate, sits on the interior wall of the vagina on either side of the urethra. Let's start with the facts related to prevalence. One study published in 2017 reported that approximately 70% of women are able to squirt. Other estimates that I've seen in other studies range from 10 to 50% of women. Research shows that 4 in every 10 women report ever squirting at some time in their life, usually for the first time in their mid-20s. 10 to 54% of women report some kind of fluid emission in general, and I'm going to talk about the other types of fluids that can come out of that area that aren't just squirt. Let's talk about the most common myth that I hear, and I feel like I have to debate this topic with people on the internet a lot. They seem to be very confident that it's pee. Spoiler alert, it is not just pee. Many may experience shame, embarrassment, guilt associated with worries like, did I just pee? Especially the first time they squirt. They might really feel like they peed because it feels like pee, and they might also be worried that their partner thinks that they just peed. One of the biggest implications that squirt is not pee is because the bladder can be empty before the sexual activity starts, yet the person still squirts. According to research that has used ultrasounds of bladders, fluid enters the bladder during arousal, then it's empty after ejaculation. So the squirt that you're squirting is going to be filtering in there during the arousal. It's not pee that's doing that. It is partially pee, but not fully. I've heard people say that yes, it feels like you're peeing when you're squirting, but a huge difference between the actual experience of peeing versus squirting is that once you start squirting, it's pretty much impossible to stop. It just keeps coming out. Typically with pee, you can stop and start voluntarily by contracting your pelvic floor muscles. Pelvic floor exercises are actually recommended for those that struggle with incontinence or leaky bladder, can't control their bladder when they get older. Another fact that I want to get into is there's a difference between female ejaculation and squirt. For a long time, researchers made the assumption that all fluids associated with sexual activity were female ejaculation, but there are 2 different types. Squirting and female ejaculation can both result from penile vaginal intercourse or toy sex, anything that's penetrative or even clitoral stimulation on the outside. The difference between female ejaculation and squirt is a different type of texture. It doesn't have as much of an odor, so not much odor, not much color. I have heard people describe squirt as somewhat of a cereal smell, Cheerios specifically. You let me know below, has that been your experience? Have you noticed a Cheerio type smell to your squirt if you've squirted or you've had a partner that squirted? Squirt in itself has a different consistency, but it also, as I mentioned before, has urea, uric acid, and creatinine. On average, you'll find that squirt is about between 6 and 30 teaspoons of squirt. Typically it's on the lower range, not that much, but it is not as much as you see in the porn videos. Female ejaculation, on the other hand, that is a thicker, milky fluid that is released by the female prostate as well, but it is more similar to semen. Obviously, it doesn't have actual sperm in there. It's definitely a lot more related to the consistency of semen than squirt. And research has shown that female ejaculation is more associated with an actual orgasm, whereas a lot of individuals squirt without having an orgasm. And according to research, approximately 1/3 to 1/2 of women experience female ejaculation based on varying studies. According to a collection of an international sample of women, approximately half reported either ejaculation from masturbation, so that was 53.4%, or ejaculation from penile vaginal intercourse, so that was more like 48.1%. And approximately 20% reported that they experienced female ejaculation as a result of doing anal. In terms of other types of liquids, Of course, pee that I mentioned before, which is not the same thing as squirt, and vaginal lubrication is also separate from this. So when you're getting aroused, the vagina tends to lubricate. That's actually not related to female ejaculation or squirt. That's something else entirely. So the next myth that I want to discuss is somewhat related to something I already said, but it is a myth that every squirting experience is associated with an orgasm. So I looked into 2 different studies, one from North America, so this was Davidson et al. One among Egyptian women, this was Eunice et al., suggested that closer to 40% of women report having ever experienced ejaculation at the moment of orgasm. A lot of older studies do seem to associate squirting with orgasm, but newer research is showing that that's not always the case. Some describe the feeling of squirting as a buildup of pressure, which can involve an intense release of pressure, but that doesn't necessarily mean that when they have that intense release, it's always gonna be associated with an orgasm. Sometimes, but not always. The last fact I wanna get into is something I learned recently, which I think is pretty interesting. It is actually very common for individuals to have their first squirting experience while they're pregnant. According to Healthline, it's completely safe to have an orgasm during pregnancy. There are, of course, guidelines to keep in mind. You want to make sure that you're doing safer positions and whatnot. Even better, medical professionals and researchers do say that having an orgasm, whether it's on your own or with a partner, can actually be really good for a woman who is pregnant or an individual who is pregnant, given that it is really good for your mental health, psychological well-being, and overall well-being, which is really important when you're pregnant. I also learned that your orgasms might vary quite a bit during different trimesters. Some people even say that they have the most intense orgasms when they're pregnant. The reason that you can have a more intense orgasm when you're pregnant is because of the increased blood flow. There's a lot of different things happening in your body, a lot more blood flow rushing to that area. And some women report that they're able to have a female ejaculation or squirt for the first time due to the pressure on the pelvic region. So I hope you learned something new with that, because I thought that that was mind-blowing, and I hope there's more research out there, because to be honest with you, I had a hard time finding more research on this, but I did learn that fact from the Sexual Health Alliance, where I'm getting my sex therapy certification, and I collaborate with them on TikTok. And I always learn so many interesting facts from the Sexual Health Alliance. I really do hope that you learned something new from this video. Please let me know your thoughts below. Have you experienced squirting yourself, or have you had a partner or partners that have squirted? And you may know, if you are one of those people, that it's not like what you see in porn. Unfortunately, it's very unrealistic. A lot of the time they'll of course be very hydrated before the scenes, but a lot of the time they might actually douche water in there to make it look like this crazy explosion that's very theatrical, which isn't always the case. Typically it's not going to be that much squirt, and it's also going to gush more than come out like a super soaker type of thing. Based on my research, it seems that there's a lot of controversial research on this. However, based on my research, not all women are able to have a squirting experience or female ejaculation experience, mostly due to anatomy, but also related to psychology. And does it matter? No, it doesn't. What matters is that you're getting your needs met personally. If you are dating somebody that is pressuring you to squirt to brush their ego for whatever reason, that is something to communicate about, because it really isn't something that you need to do, like I keep saying. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. Some people find it can be a bit of a mess, but I would say just put a towel down or a blanket down. Yeah, if you want, because you want to know what it feels like, there are different ways to find out how to make yourself squirt more by stimulating your G-spot area. Also a controversial topic when it comes to the G-spot, but yes, about 2 inches into the interior wall is typically where you'll need to be stimulated. A lot of women need a simultaneous clitoral stimulation as well in order to achieve that. As we are already talking about the genital region, maybe you're more interested in learning about pubes. I did make a video on facts and myths related to pubes, so make sure to check that out after this if you like videos like this, and don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on bell notifications for more Sex Ed Sundays with Dr. Sonya Maya. Have a great week.